All right. We got a bunch of players to run through today, so let's get after it. I got my weekend coffee in. Mila's messing around here, so I might have to adjust some things throughout the video. But let's start off with Chuba Hubbard. So it looks like he's going to be back this week. He had that calf strain. Real question is, how is he going to perform? Is Rico Dowdle going to take a hold of that main spot, or are we going to be looking at a timeshare? And I think this is the week where we decide. Rico played against pretty bad teams these past 2 weeks that he went off, so this is his week to show that he is who the running back they should go with. We're gonna. I think see Chuba start, but I think they're going to give Rico a good chance to take over this backfield. And if he's able to perform, then that's it. He's the guy the rest of the way. So this week is very important. Brock Bowers is basically going to come back week 9. He already got ruled out again this week. Seems like that bone bruise is lingering. It's really good that they're getting him the adequate rest, though, because I do feel confident about him coming back strong this week. Coming back strong this season and being able to be a strong tight end one for you later on this season. Bucky Irving, the earliest I could see this guy coming back is week 10 after the bye. They still haven't released any information. They've just told us that the shoulder is worse than the midfoot sprain, and the midfoot sprains are pretty significant in my opinion. So that means that I think he's having some shoulder instability, and I think they're waiting to see if he's having persistent instability to decide whether or not they might want to do surgery. We talked about shoulder instability resulting from an injury to that glenoid, basically the socket that holds the ball in, or an injury to the ball, that humeral head. So we'll see kind of what happens there. Aside from that, let's see if I can maybe put some mic here so that way I have use of one of my hands. It's one of those Abercrombie hoodies. So yeah, it doesn't really. It's too thick to pin too. All right, Deebo Samuel. So I think he's not going to play this week, and honestly, I would probably pivot if he does play this week. Deebo is a great player, but he, in my opinion, has a history of playing through injuries and conditions that maybe he should just take some rest for. We saw it last year when he had pneumonia. He got taken to the hospital, and he still played the following week, which is, badass. But maybe just take a couple weeks. So if he plays this week with this heel bruise or this heel contusion, we talked about these bone bruises. Last week he played, he was limited. If for some reason you went with that McCaffrey pick, even though Deebo is active, you would have paid off, but I don't expect you would have done that because I only told you to play McCaffrey if Deebo's out. But yeah, Deebo, I would be kind of wary about starting him this week with that heel bruise, even if he is active. Aside from that, Mike Evans, I think he's going to be active against my Lions, unfortunately, and I think that's because if he plays this week, he only needs 78 yards per game to break that record. So I would say that Mike Evans is likely going to play this week, and he would be a start, in my opinion. I think Michael Carr is hard to trust. I don't think he's been showing too much with Trey Bensen out, so I would be wary about starting him. He doesn't have any specific injury. Josh Downs popped up with a concussion on Wednesday, which is kind of crazy. That means that he probably suffered it. Maybe he's having some symptoms that popped up, which is not a good sign. So I would say that Josh Downs is likely out this week with a good shot at returning back next week. Joe Mixon, people have been asking me, there she goes, about Joe Mixon. I've said before, I'm not gonna prioritize holding him. We don't really know what's going on here. So he doesn't have a timeline for return. Doesn't seem like him and the team are on the same page. I wouldn't be holding Joe Mixon in my roster. Chris Godwin, he's got a fibula aggravation. They say that it's not related to the ankle dislocation surgery he had on the fibula in that same ankle. I think that's doubtful. But either way, he's out these next couple weeks. And I've already said from the beginning, he said, do not draft me, not really do not stash for me. Hopefully he comes back this season, but I wouldn't be expecting too much fantasy-wise out of him. Ceedee Lamb, definitely a start this week. He's a full go. He's had plenty of recovery time for the average high ankle sprain, and I would be plugging him into the lineup. Jayden Reed, I would be holding in my lineup. I think he'll be a good flex play around playoff time if you need him. He had the Jones surgery for that Jones fracture, and that's within the timeline of what it takes for the clavicle fracture to heal. So I don't think that either of those injuries are going to compound the time that he misses. I think they're both the same time period, and he should be able to play. Josh Jacobs has a calf injury, but he's got a history of having injuries that he plays through without really any kind of perceptible deficit. He had a full practice. I would be fine with him. Darnell Mooney had a hamstring injury. He's missed a couple weeks now. He's come back on this third week. I would also think that he should be able to perform decently well. He's within that range. Christian Watson, I wouldn't expect him to be back until week 8. recovering from the ACL, but he's been a player that I've been saying to stash on IR, and I think he'll give you some good production. Kyler Murray has that Lisfranc injury. They called it a Lisfranc specifically, which means it's an injury to that main loading part of the midfoot. Those are typically season-long injuries, so I would be wary about him for the remainder of the season just because he's a quarterback who does a lot of rushing. And it's going to limit that. That's one of his major assets. DeAndre Swift had a groin injury, but it's not a new injury. He's had these hip and quad injuries throughout the year, so I don't think this is a new injury. I think he should still play. Fred Warner, they talked that he might be back for the playoffs. You can remember last year when this happened to Aiden Hutchinson. The best case scenario here is that Fred Warner could be back, but he'd be like a moral kind of support guy this season. He'll be back and he'll be able to play at a high level, but within the same season, it's just not likely. Sorry to disappoint the 49ers fans here. Jalen Coker, I think he's going to be a slot merchant. He's coming back this week, so we'll see kind of what happens here. And he's a good stash. Darren Waller had that quad avulsion, and that quad avulsion seems like he recovered fine from it. He dropped 2 touchdowns. I think he's going to do good. She's standing without really any help here, which is kind of crazy. I got to make sure she does okay. Aside from that, Brandon Aiyuk, I've also said he's on my do not hold list because he's got that multi-ligament injury. No real timeline for return, so not really a hold. Ricky Pearsall, he is someone who it's kind of hard to tell when he'll be back. They're just making sure that they don't return him too early from that PCL injury, which seems like it's lingering. I would say that he comes back hopefully next week, but it's kind of hard to tell with him, to be honest. Sorry about that. Jauan Jennings is playing through a bunch of rib fractures, a high ankle sprain, a low ankle sprain. I think this is a little bit of hyperbole because you shouldn't be allowed to play through a high ankle sprain. And if you have 5 significantly fractured ribs, that's also a pretty significant contraindication to play unless they were old fractures and they're already in a state of healing or maybe stress reactions. I'm sure he's playing through a ton of injuries, though. That makes me feel like he's probably a guy that you should be wary of starting just because his production is going to be limited by all of these injuries. Emeka Egbuka, they haven't released the MRI results. It's kind of crazy. But all reports are that it is a minor injury, like a minor hamstring. So with that being said, I'd say he's out for about 2 to 3 weeks without any further information on that. Aside from that, Brock Purdy ruled out again this week. I think they're just taking a cautious approach for that turf toe. He was hitting the sled pretty hard. I would think he comes back next week. I thought he was going to be back this week, but I guess I was wrong. Omarion Hampton or Marvin Harrison Jr. should be a start this week. He cleared concussion protocol. Wouldn't be concerned about how he plays. I'd be starting him. I think he should get an upgrade actually with Jakobi Brissett. Omarion Hampton, I talked before. I'm kind of concerned that he fractured that fibula and that he's a trade candidate for me, just based on the progression, based on looking for a new running back, based on them saying he's going to be out longer than that IR period, and based on how the video looked as well. Quentin Johnston had a hamstring injury. He practiced all 3 times last week and was ruled out last minute. I think that he's a good start. He's been blowing up this year, and I would be wary about Ladd. This is Ladd's time to shine with QJ active. We might see the return of Ladd McConkey if he's able to produce this week. David Njoku's out. I went over that in a more detailed video. He had a knee hyperextension. I think he's got either a mild bone bruise and or a PCL injury, so I would foresee him miss here. He's already out this week as I projected. Probably out next week. Might return after that. Jakobi Meyer, I don't think he's got a real injury. I just think they're about to trade him. Lamar Jackson, I think that he'll be back week 8. That'll have him out about that 3 to 4 week period for a hamstring injury, and I would be immediately starting him afterwards. Trey Bensen, probably back week 11, week 12. He had that meniscus repair or meniscus clipping, which is a key detail because if it's a repair, he's out for the season. If it's a clipping, oh man, just going for my coffee. Ugh. If it's a clipping, then he'll be good to go week 11, week 12. So definitely keep Trey Bensen if you have him. Calvin Ridley should be back on week 11 after the bye. Puka Nacua had that ankle sprain. I called that he would be out this week. I think he returns back after the bye, week 9. And then aside from that, Terry McLaurin has this core injury. I've been saying to trade him since like late September, but you probably haven't had much luck there. I think he's going to be limited all year, and I think he's at risk for being shut down. Garrett Wilson had a hyperextension injury, meaning a PCL/bone bruise possibly. I think he comes back week 10, and that is the rundown. hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a good Saturday and get some weekend coffee, okay?